Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. We are playing some Monster Hunter World Beta today because it is the thing to do. Put a lot of hours into this one. It's just so good, so good. I've never been so hyped for a game. It's crazy. I'm recording this on Saturday night because tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and there's some partying going on. So, shit, he's not here. Shit. Should have gone the other way, but okay. Yeah, so, yeah, that's that, yeah. Let's see, then. This week on the Exploring series, put out, videos. Oh, I see him over there. I'm a-coming. I put out videos on the Morag Tong and Dark Brotherhood, Mehrunes Dagon, and Mephala. And, not much to say about them. Not incredibly happy with any of them, I guess. But they are what they are, and I got the job done, and that's what matters. The hell are you going, son? Look at him, he's gunning it. My entire week, though, was dominated by working on the Cthulhu Mythos in Bloodborne video. It was by far the most work I've ever put into a video. Largely because most of the time was really just spent playing Bloodborne. What the hell is he doing? He dug a rock? He's gonna chuck... Oh my god. I didn't even know he did this. That would have been a lot cooler if I pulled it off. Yeah, so a lot of time this week playing Bloodborne. I'm never gonna pull that off on this little dude. Oh well. Because I had to beat... I guess I didn't have to. Okay, I guess have to is not the right term, but I wanted to. For the sake of the video, I wanted to. I wanted to beat the game and the DLC, get every ounce of footage with no HUD. And I could have cut a lot of corners. Because, like, the Orphan of Kaz, you know, at the end of the DLC, I barely used any footage of the Orphan of Kaz in the whole fight. All I needed to do was, like, show the opening cinematic or something like that. I could have done the whole fight with the HUD on and just been, like, whatever. But I did the entire fight with no HUD. I was not satisfied with myself until I beat him, the whole thing with no HUD. And I did. And so then, of course, I was like, alright, fuck that. This footage is going in the video one way or another. So the end of the video has me killing Orphan of Kaz with no HUD on. And that's good. I mean, it's fortunate that Bloodborne is such an amazing game. And I really like Bloodborne. Like, it's fantastic. And so, considering the amount of time that I played it this week, for all the footage I had to get, if it was a shitty game I was covering, it would have been a lot rougher. But luckily, Bloodborne is great. So it wasn't too bad. Yeah, I guess it wasn't that bad. It was just really time consuming to go through all that, and it was just playing games for work is not really ideal. I know some people have that sort of fantasy, but when you start playing a game for work, it's like, okay, I'd rather play something else, but I can't. I'm not allowed to. I have to do this. And so that's a little bit of a bummer, but there are far worse jobs, I guess. So, but yeah, it was very time consuming. A lot of time spent choke on these nuts. God, the game is so anime now. It's great. And then yesterday, Friday, was just a bitch. That's what I would call it. Just from the moment I got up, just hours of video editing, putting together a 29-minute video. And the real pain was the fact that I had like 14 hours or something like that, really more than that, worth of Bloodborne footage. And it's like, okay, I'm talking about this now. I need this specific, like, 8-second clip that I recorded. Okay, let me find which one of these 15 videos it's from, and then let me sift through the video to find the specific thing, and then you gotta cut it out and move it to the other part. It's just yeah, very time consuming. I feel like my index finger is cramped, or there's something wrong. It does not feel right, and I want to blame this whole week of just working on Bloodborne. That being said, I did finish the video, 29 minutes long, and I think it's good, not great, which, I mean, the fact that I can call it good is better than a lot of my videos. So I'm pleased with it. I hope people enjoy it. It took a lot of work. Oh, he was almost dead anyways. Alright, let's find that Baroth. You know, I put it together trying to appeal to both Bloodborne fans that don't know much about the Cthulhu mythos and Cthulhu mythos fans that don't know much about Bloodborne. I didn't want to go all in on either group. Because it is a Cthulhu mythos video, I'm putting it under exploring Cthulhu mythos, but it's very possible that those people just don't know the whole plot of Bloodborne and the DLC and all that kind of stuff. But Bloodborne fans that don't know much about Cthulhu mythos is a far larger group of people, so I want to appeal to them as well. So I tried to appeal to both. You know, it obviously could have been very different if I had just gone all in on specific group, but shit, I'm covered in shit. I think it's good. I hope people like it. So then this week I'm working on the Meridia video, and I believe the Molag Bal video, or however it's pronounced, as well as the 9 Divines. Bullshit. Choke on these nuts. Oh! It's hard to get more anime than that. Oh! Great. So yeah, back to Elder Scrolls after all that Bloodborne stuff. 'Cause I don't need to play Bloodborne for a while. That being said, I understand the lore of the game far better than I did before. Which isn't to say it's a great understanding either way. Oh! Fucking Monster Hunter World, man. It's beautiful. Yeah, I guess that's all there's to say about Exploring series. I don't think I'll hit 100K this week. Oh, get back here. I mean, if the Bloodborne video just does really, really well, and suddenly gets recommended and brings in a lot of new viewership, it's possible. But otherwise, I would say probably the following week. But either way, it's fine with me. I've waited years. I'm sure I can wait another week. Spirit Storm! It's so anime. Oh! Glorious. That's a triple hunt right there. That's pretty good. All right. So this week on this channel, then, like I said, I was swamped. All of my free time was spent playing Bloodborne or working on the script for the video for Bloodborne. So that was it. And so you did get a couple Bloodborne videos this week. There was Final Fantasy videos, of course. Trying to think if there was anything else. There was a roll manging. That was a pretty good time for a triple hunt. I mean, those are all easy monsters, but oh well. I don't think there was a Styx video. I thought about doing one tonight, but I figured I'd rather just record this. Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Oh, there was the other Monster Hunter video, right? So that will kind of continue somewhat. Because I still am very busy. You know, the Bloodborne video just was like mind-numbingly just hectic. But I'm still doing 3 videos a week, and it's Christmas, so yeah, just hold on, I guess. Not much else to say. I don't think there will be a roll manging this week, though. So, there's that. Yeah. I guess there's not much to say about my channel. Okay. Moving on to board games. There's only one notable thing I want to discuss, and that is Gloomhaven. Ho ho ho! So, I already talked about Gloomhaven a little bit in sort of a mini rant after I unboxed everything, and I was complaining that I was never going to get to play it because it was just too massive, and you know, it was something you had to play every week over, you know, all these scenarios and this big campaign every week and all sorts of stuff, and it would just never happen with my group of people and blah, 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 blah. And so I said, well, maybe, you know, I'll play it with my mom and we'll see how it goes, see if we like it, blah, blah, blah. Well, we fucking like it. Like, holy shit. Is it fantastic. Like, guys, it's fantastic. It's certainly one of the best board games I've ever played. Can never find Anjanath. Done this hunt so many times. We've played it 1, 2, 3. I think this was our 4th. Yeah, this was our 4th time playing it tonight. I don't even know where to start. It's you know, even though I do think it's fantastic, like it's really incredible. Oh, there he is. I still don't think it'll ever get played. This is not one. I'm trying to talk about Gloomhaven. My buttons are all messing up. It's still not a game that I think I would play with my group of 4 players. Just because, well, for multiple reasons, really. One is time, and really, well, I guess 2 elements of time. Both, like, the session time that it takes. It has a very lengthy setup time to set up each scenario. It just does. There's no... I mean, you can sort of expedite it if you know what you're doing. You have a good organization for all your components and things like that. You can speed it up a little bit, but still it takes a long time. There's not much getting around it. Fucker. I forgot about the paratoads. Come wake me up, cat. Oh, Jesus. You don't have to hit me that hard. We get the picture. I used to be a lot better with the switch axe. So not only does it take a long time to set up, wow. Just doing a scenario takes a long time. Like, for us right now, doing a scenario takes anywhere from like an hour and a half to 2 hours so far, which is long. That's a long time. Because you don't want to do just one scenario. I want to do, you know, 3 scenarios in a night. Because you want to keep going. You keep unlocking stuff, you keep, you know, continuing a story, you keep doing all this stuff. Well, at least I hit him. But it takes so long to set up and to do a scenario that it's just, well, that's our game for the night, is one scenario. And so to get through a campaign, you're talking about, I mean, if we did one scenario a week, you're talking about a year. You're talking about a whole year of weekly Gloomhaven, which, yeah, I mean, if you didn't have an RPG and that's what you did, and you had a group of 4 people that loved it, maybe. I mean, it is really good, but it's still, like, just, it's not as varied as an RPG can be. And we don't play a single RPG for a year. We'll switch campaigns all over the place, and that's how it is. So it just wouldn't work for my group of people of just doing that every week for a year to get through a campaign. And you want to get through a campaign because otherwise, you know, that's just the type of game it is. But, for us to just, you know, every night playing through a scenario of Gloomhaven, sitting down and just setting it up, and you know, I can set up the whole thing ahead of time and blah blah blah, and then we just sit down and we play through one scenario a night, and maybe at some point we'll move on to 2 scenarios a night if we can speed things up a little bit. It's really incredible. We already like it better than Arkham Horror LCG. Just because, for me at least, Arkham Horror LCG, a lot of the time, it's sort of just subject to the whole randomness that is card games, where you're just a slave to the draw. You might get shit draw for a while, and the game might just screw you over, and you just feel helpless. Like, you feel like there's really nothing you can do with your hand of cards in the current situation. Whereas with Gloomhaven, I pretty much always feel like I can do something. I can do something on my turn to continue to progress, to advance through this scenario. There are just definitely better turns than some, and that's part of the challenge, is really managing your cards to get good turns consistently and to get incredible turns once in a while, so on and so forth. But yeah, just the whole gameplay feels a lot more balanced and more entertaining. That's not to say we don't like Arkham Horror. Fucking hell yeah. I especially love the theme of Arkham Horror. Cthulhu mythos and all that, and just a horror game is great. And I like I like some of the mechanics that they come up with in Arkham Horror, because it requires some ingenuity to keep things interesting through all these scenarios with just cards. So we're gonna keep playing that as new scenarios come out and things like that. But the great thing about Gloomhaven is you buy it once, and it was like $100 or something close to that, a little bit more. And there's like 95 scenarios in the box, which is, again, like, you play one a day or whatever. That's an insane amount. And they have like generators or whatever in the game for just random scenarios. And sometimes, you might just want to do a random scenario to get some XP and some money or whatever before you continue your story. And then, from what I understand, the creator of the game works on all sorts of like free distributed scenarios that he just gives out, that he's worked on, and just is like, here's some more scenarios. And you have everything in the box to do these scenarios, just like a piece of paper you print out. But the amount of variations possible with just the components in the box are pretty great. And I'm only like, we're only like 4 scenarios in. But yeah, it's just incredible. Like, now that we're getting into it, I really can't stop thinking about it. I want to play it all the time. Just the core combat, or the core mechanics of the game are really just enjoyable. Basically, at the start of each scenario, you have a number of cards, and the number and the actual cards themselves are dependent on what what your character class is. So I'm playing a Mind Thief, who is sort of like a Artemis type. It's a rat, but he can mind control enemies, he can force enemies to attack their friends, and he can force enemies to move where I want them to, so I can move them onto traps and stuff. And I just got level 2, so I just got this card that I can use on an enemy, and for the next turn, that enemy treats their enemies as allies and their allies as enemies. For all their attacks and movement and stuff. And so that's just awesome. Because not only is that just protecting me and my allies, because now we have an enemy that is not attacking us this turn, but also I've added DPS this next turn by using the enemy as part of my DPS. So it's really just a great net gain there. And I've always liked that. That's why I like playing Artemis. I just like the whole mind control type thing. So yeah, you get a number of cards. You get your whole hand of cards at the start of the scenario, and each round you pick 2 cards from your hand to play, and so you get to pick the cards. You get your whole hand of cards to play from, and you get to pick it. So there's no draw here. You're like, oh, I hope I get this card to draw. No, you have your whole hand. Get it in there. Oh, yes. You know, you have all your options available to you, so it's entirely strategic. There's no RNG there. So you pick 2 cards to play, and each card is divided into 2 halves. There's a top half and a bottom half, and so of the 2 cards you play, you have to do the top half of one card and the bottom half of the other card. And so it's really interesting because as you lose cards and discard cards and things like that, as you use them up, you'll come into situations where it's like, oh man, I really want to use the top card of this, or the top half of this card and the top half of this card, but you can't do that. You have to have a top and a bottom each time. And like the top half, at least for me, I've found. I honestly, yeah, I don't know any other cards, but at least for my character, the Mind Thief, the bottom half of a lot of cards tends to be movement, and the top half tends to be attacks. And so you'll get into situations where it's like, well, I really want to move a lot this turn, or I don't want to move a lot this turn, but you can't do double bottoms, you can't do double tops, and so there's just every turn is generally interesting to me. And the other really great thing is it's really not that complicated of a game. Like for the other people, you have to have, of course, the one person that knows how to do everything, knows how to set it all up, knows all the rules. But for other people that are just sitting there and playing, it's really not that complicated. As far as all the little rules, but nice. There's still a lot of it's simple rules, but there's a lot of options available to you, and the game gets more complex, as you continue to play, which is really great. And so we, my mom's not that great at games. She's still, we've played Arkham Horror dozens of times, and she still has problems with certain rules and questions and things like that, whereas we're already sort of just clipping along with Gloomhaven to the point of, in Arkham Horror, I know every single one of her cards in her deck. I built her deck. I know what they all do, all that sort of stuff. I really have pretty much no idea what her cards do for her character. I mean, obviously, I'm learning as she continues to play them and things like that. But she makes all her decisions. She makes all her own decisions. She doesn't say, "Oh, what does this card do?" or blah blah blah. It's all very clear. It's pretty basic, but it allows for a lot of interesting interactions and things like that to happen. Um, that's another thing that's better about Gloomhaven compared to Arkham Horror is there's no deck building. You don't have to worry about, like, okay, is this an optimal deck? You don't have to net deck or risk making some really shitty abomination. And some people like deck building. But for me, it's just like, okay, whatever. I always net deck, and it's like, all right, I got to put this together, and I got this big, fat stack of cards, and it's like, okay, is this optimal? Is this a great card? Is this a shit card? Whereas, like, in Gloomhaven, you know, I start with 10 cards, and basically, I have 10 basic cards, and when I first got the character, there were like 3 sort of special cards, not special, but different option cards that I could swap in to the basic deck of 10 if I wanted to. I actually did pick one. And they're not like better. They're just maybe slightly more complicated and just different. And then as you level up your character, every level you basically just, you get to swap in one new card and remove one old card. And so it's like, you know, every level you make a decision between like 2 cards to add. So it's just like, and your deck your hand, I guess, evolves over time to become more powerful and more interesting. But for a long while, many scenarios, you're really just using the basic cards that you start with, and you can enhance the cards as you go on. You can sort of spend money to give them bonuses and make them do special status effects and interesting stuff like that. But it's really not complicated, but it's still interesting. But yeah, it's like when you first start, you're just doing this random scenario of just you're beating up bandits in like a building. It's just like, or it's in like a dungeon or something. It's like, all right, whatever. It's the learning scenario. And after you beat that, you unlock the second scenario, and it's like, okay, we're going to the second scenario. And so you're thinking like, okay, well then we're just going to go to the third, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and so on and so forth. Oh no, it does not work like that. In fact, it's far more interesting than that. I think after we did the second scenario, we unlocked like, I think we unlocked like the 4th and the 10th or something like that. Like at this point, 4 scenarios in, we have like the 9th, the 10th, the 7th or something, maybe the 14th scenario, and then the 67th or 68th scenario we just unlocked. The 68th, which was a random side scenario. You get side scenarios that aren't part of the main quest, but they have, you know, unique rewards and things like that, so you might want to go do it. And so we unlocked it randomly, and now we want to go do that, and it's really interesting. There's branching paths. This is kind of a spoiler, but it's in like the first few scenarios, so whatever. But basically, like you have a choice to make very early on. Like right away, you're dealing with this sort of NPC, I guess, who seems a little shady, and so very early on, you have the choice of either like continuing to work with her towards her shady goals, or working with like the city guard to go against her and try and take her out. And so you immediately have this choice to make, and both paths, you know, go in completely different directions and unlock completely different scenarios. And once you go down a certain path, the other one's blocked off. You cannot go back and do that other scenario because, you know, you're following along with the story, and that's really cool. And yeah, you got side scenarios, you have events. The events are really cool. It reminds me of Dead of Winter and stuff, where like whenever right before you go to a new scenario, you do a road event, which happens on the road there, and every event has some text, and then you have like option A or option B for like, oh, you're hungry and you find berries on the side of the road. Do you eat them or do you just eat your rations? Which is a really, easy, basic one, because if you're eating random berries on the side of the road, you're doing it wrong. But and some of them, some of them are very blatant like that, where it's like, okay, this is clearly good, this is clearly bad. Others are a little bit like, I don't know, really. And some of them are, you actually can put thought into, and it's like, because one of them, I guess is a spoiler, one of us was the city event, when you're in the city of Gloomhaven, where like a vermling, which was like a rat person, like myself, my character's a rat person, they stole my purse and they ran off into the sewer. And so the option A was like, follow them into the sewer, or option B was fire a shot at them through the crowd. Which both sound pretty shitty, but I was like, well, I'm a vermling myself. I live in the sewer, so I'll be right at home. And so I went with that, and it turned out that with that option, if you had any other character other than a mind thief in your party, you like just lost your money and you lost reputation or something like that. You just lost your money. But since I was a mind thief, I got the special option where I think I got my money and I got something else out of it. I think I found even more money or something. So the events are really cool. You unlock, new equipment to buy, and you get the Gloomhaven raises in prosperity, and you have a party sheet that tracks your party for because you can have multiple parties of different players and different characters, and so you track your reputation for each party. So this can be positive or negative. So, we're trying to be really good guys. We want to be really good with a great reputation. So we're starting to rise up in the reputation rank, and we can already see that certain events are sort of changed if you have a high enough reputation. Like one of the city events we had was like, you're asked to guard some goods at a dock tonight or something like that. And so we decided to guard the goods because we want to be good guys. And so basically we got attacked by thieves, and so we beat up the thieves easily because of the event, and so we got 5 XP, which is pretty great for an event, and we got money for guarding the goods. But if you have a high enough reputation, the thieves don't even show up, because they're like, oh, the crusaders or whatever are guarding the good, I've heard of them, we're not gonna fuck with them, so they don't even go. So you don't get the XP, you just get the gold. So in that situation, it's actually worse mechanically for having the high reputation, but thematically, it's very interesting. Yeah, I've talked about it a while. I would make a video about it, but I really have no interest in playing it on my own. I don't care to play it on my own. I'm just not a solo board gamer. It's just not going to happen. So it's a lot of work to set it up and to explain it all and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure other people have done a far better job at explaining Gloomhaven. So usually I just do board manging videos and things like that to just sort of broadcast interest in a game and to tell you guys about it and how good it is. So consider this right here to be the equivalent of that. It is very good. I can't wait to keep playing it. I don't know if it's better than Cosmic, because like Tom Vassell thinks. It's like apples and oranges, really. I don't know if I can really compare. They're completely different. 100% different. But it is very good. If you are a person that could do solo board gaming, it's probably one of the best solo board games ever made, just with the depth of it and everything. If you have one other person that would play it, every night or every other night, yes, do it. It's fantastic. Daka Daka, motherfucker. If you have a group of 3 or 4 that meet once a week, that's up to you. You know, if you've been sort of interested in the overall concept of RPGs, maybe check it out. I think actually, like, for someone that wants to get their friends into, like, D&D, but they don't want to jump right into just, here's Dungeons and Dragons, Gloomhaven would possibly be a very interesting way to go about it. You know, there's no DM, but you get sort of the tactical-esque combat that the D&D is sometimes known for. And there is opportunities, I think, for role-playing. Because you are making decisions. You know, you are going through these sort of story scenarios. There are events that happen, and you have this, you know, this ongoing reputation and story and blah blah blah. I could see some light role playing being possible. Because, you know, you have to make decisions about, like, are we a group of good guys or are we a group of bad guys? That's like a really basic sort of D&D-esque decision, and, you know, Gloomhaven has that. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And that's even, like, we've only have the 6 basic classes. You start with 6 classes to start. But there's like 17 in the box. And so it takes a little while to unlock new ones. You have to complete your personal quest, which is not easy. And then you retire the character and you unlock a new one. So it's not quick, but I can't wait to unlock some new ones. I mean, I like the Mind Thief. I'm very happy I picked the Mind Thief. But yeah, I want to try everything. I want to try everything out. But you can just switch characters if you want, but it's like, I'm level 2 now. I don't want to start from scratch and blah, blah, blah. Maybe, I think maybe since we're both level 2, I can switch to a new character and start at level 2. But for now, I do really like the Mind Thief. And also you unlock perks as you go, as you level up and as you complete scenario quests. And so perks sort of affect your attack modifier deck. So it's a kind of a bit of deck building there where you're trying to trim out the bad cards and just have a slim deck of just good cards and blah, blah, blah. And, it's just so good. I highly recommend it. I mean, I don't know where you can pick it up at this point in time, but keep an eye out for it. I mean, it's already number 2 on BGG. Some people are predicting it'll be number 1 soon enough. It's number 1 under thematic games and strategy games. So it's the number 1 strategy game across all BGG. And number 2 overall, only behind Pandemic Legacy, which Pandemic Legacy sucks. And so, like, this is, I think it's like I think it's gonna become like a series. I mean, they could keep supporting this thing for years and release expansion that just have, you know, new monsters and more scenarios and things like that, and just, yeah, it's really just an incredible piece of board gaming. I think I've talked about it enough, but I can't wait to play it some more. Alright. Last thing then, I guess. Oh god, I have 2 things. Okay, I'll talk about the Mangg quick. It was a one-shot. It was DM'd by my buddy Thomas. His first time DMing. He wanted to DM Dungeon World. So I think originally he was going to do just like his own homebrew one-shot. And I was just like, I don't think that's a great idea. They have adventure starters that you can use for Dungeon World. So he went with one of that. The nice thing about that is you don't really have. It's sort of sandboxy. Like, it's not outlined enough where it's like, okay, I want them to go here, and then I want to go here, and then I want them to go here, because I have this dungeon mapped out, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you're in the area, maybe they'll get to the dungeon, maybe they won't. Which was really good for us, because we did not make it to the dungeon. They picked their classes, so they had a wizard, a fighter, and a ranger, and so I rolled mine randomly. I just looked at the remaining classes, and I'm just like, all right, here's a D8. We'll see what I get. So, of course, I got the Immolator, which is sort of an official Dungeon World playbook. I mean, I guess it's created by the original creator, but it's not in the original book, but whatever. So the Immolator, of course, has a lot of fire stuff. He can kind of control fire and make weapons out of fire. Which was good because we were in the frozen wasteland or whatever. We were in like the frozen north, or south, whatever. And basically, we were there to go to these ruins, these legendary ruins. We were looking for like this scepter of summoning or something, and so we go down there. There's really almost no one around, but there is like a snow elf presence. They have their own city nearby. But we were in this little encampment, and we were trying to find these ruins. So we hired like this sled dog team, and we hired this guide, this snow elf guide, who has never been to the ruins, but he knows something about them. So we sort of just intimidated him into coming along. And so we just start heading off into the wasteland to try and find these ruins. And we come across a group of 3 hunters that are just like sitting around a fire. And so I'm like, guys, I'll sneak in. I'll sneak in and find out what they're up to. So I get close, and I don't even hear what they're talking about. I just asked Thomas, I'm like, okay, do they look like hard men? Like, I meant like hard, like... like bandits and thugs, and they've got scars and they look like they'll kill people for a nickel or something. So I'm like, do they look like hard men? And he's like, that's the only type of man around here. And I'm like, all right, then I fucking blow them up. So we immediately get into combat with these hunters, and we dice them up and we kill them all. And we had been warned that there was a type of monster in the area. Apparently it lived underground, that was attracted to light. So we wanted to, keep things very dim in the darkness to avoid attracting these horrible monsters. We were warned multiple times about these horrible monsters. Which of course in a one shot is like, all right, fuck you. So we piled these bodies and all their belongings onto their fire, and we just made it grow into this gigantic bonfire, this beacon in the middle of this nighttime wasteland, which of course, one of these monsters came out of the ground and charged towards us. And so basically it was like a mammoth. It was like a Cthulhu mammoth. It was a mammoth, but it had like tentacles on its face and stuff like that, and growths on its body. So it charged at us, and we kicked that thing's fucking ass. Because, like, really, like, I think... Yeah. Ziggy knew the spell Polymorph, which seems to be really powerful. I think the DM has to step in a little bit and be like, hold on, you can't... Doesn't work that way. But, like, pretty much anything we encounter, he's just like, alright, I polymorph it. And so he polymorphed this Cthulhu mammoth into a seal. And we just threw the seal on the fire. And so it died, like, right away in the fire. But I was sitting in the fire because I'm immune to fire, and I'm actually healed by it, so I just sit in the fire. And so the seal died right next to me in the fire, and then when it dies, it reverts back to its normal form, which is a giant Cthulhu mammoth. So I was actually, like, crushed beneath it. Uh, I managed to survive. I like carved my way out with like a fire sword, a fire sword. And so we like took the Cthulhu mammoth's tusks and we took the face tentacles off of it, and we're like, all right, we're gonna get a lot of money for this. Fuck the dungeon, fuck the ruins. We got all the money we need right here. So we go back to the encampment with our bounty, and now I'm like, no, you don't want to sell it here. Who's gonna buy it here? The only person there was Mert. We had Mert as an NPC, who, of course, he just loved eating everything. So he wanted to eat all the tentacles. So we gave him one to like cook up for us, and we ate it. And we're like, no, fuck you, Mer. We're not giving you all these tentacles. You don't have any money. So we got to go to the Snow Elf Kingdom, and we're gonna sell all this stuff. So we head out again with our sled dogs, and we head out into the wasteland. And I think we encounter a couple snow elves, but we kill them. Oh, we also killed our guide. We killed our snow elf guide because I was sitting in the middle of the bonfire, and I'm like, beckoning towards the sky and stuff and shouting for this monster to come out and face us. Because our fighter he just craved combat against, a ferocious beast. So he was all in on this. And so the guy just like, you guys are fucking crazy. I'm out of here. And so he started to run. And so I'm like, hell no, bitch. So I whipped out a fire whip out of my hand. And I'm just like, get whipped. And so I whipped him in the back. And then Phil apparently was like, all right, we're killing this guy. So he just chucked a spear through his back and killed him instantly. So that was good. We threw his body on the fire as well to make it larger. So we encountered some more snow elves, and we killed their ass. I don't know what we did with the bodies. I think we just buried them in the snow. And then we're just wandering around in this wasteland. We have no idea where to go and how to get to where we're trying to go. So we end up on the frozen lake. We start like walking across the frozen lake. And so, of course, one-shot mode activated. So I conjure a giant flaming hammer. Oh, keep in mind, I'm a kobold, by the way. I conjure a giant flaming hammer, and I slam it into the ground of this ice lake. And so, of course, it immediately makes this giant hole, and cracks form and things like that. And so I convince Phil... I inspire him, actually, that he should go down into the hole under the water because there's probably some crazy-ass treasure down there. And so he, of course, goes down under the water, and instead of treasure, he finds a giant eel that wants to eat him. Actually, right when he jumps down, he's gonna die. Because it's like freezing ice-cold water. He has no breathing apparatus, and, anything. So Ziggy's like, I'll polymorph you. So he polymorphs him into a big fish. But he fucks up the polymorph. He fails. So Phil becomes half fish, half human, with human legs and fish head and torso. So he can breathe underwater, but his legs are not designed at all for swimming, and he has no arms to hold anything. So he goes underwater as a half fish, half human. He gets chased by the eel. He tries to get away. He does like some really, really stupid decisions as far as like combat is concerned. He gets like chased into this tunnel, and then I think he dies. He dies. And so we wait up there for like 20 minutes in the cold, and we're like, well, I guess he's fucking dead, so let's move on. So we get to the Snow Elf Kingdom, and we sell off our loot for like a whole bunch of money, and that's where we ended. So overall, a pretty successful one-shot. I wasn't full one-shot mode, at least at the start. I was planning to go to the ruins. I was fine with that. Full one-shot mode would have just been immediately to burn down the entire encampment and put Mert's head on a spike and stuff like that. But really, it was just sort of a good way to sort of educate Thomas in DMing and how to improvise and deal with perhaps things you didn't expect for, and all sorts of different situations and encounters, social stuff, combat stuff. I tried to cover all sorts of grounds, and he enjoyed it. He says, I don't know if he'll ever DM again. We'll see, but I think it went pretty well. We had a fun time, so it's all good. So I don't think we're doing any role manging this week because of all the Christmas stuff, but then the following week we should be starting Shadow the Demon Lord. Okay, last thing. I know we're over an hour, but last thing I want to discuss is Star Wars The Last Jedi. Just some quick rants. This is going to be spoilered stuff, so if you don't want spoilers for Last Jedi, this is where we can part ways. I did like it, but it has issues if you're curious. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. So if that's all you want to know about, then we will part ways, and I'll see you next week. But if you want to stick around and you don't mind spoilers if you've already seen it, I enjoyed it for the most part. You know, when I was sitting there, I was sitting through the movie. There were certainly enjoyable parts. There were some moments that were some of the coolest things ever in Star Wars, especially one notable scene. The scene where the light speed attack through all the ships, where it goes sort of black and white and silent. You know, when the entire theater is just, you could drop a pin in that fucking theater and hear it. And you got those just, that, it's like anime sort of esque images on screen of just, what the fuck did I just witness? And it's just, everybody in the theater is just, it's just, oh man, that was worth the admission right there, personally. But now you have all those people that are like, why don't they just have hundreds of little ships with hyperdrives that just, bombard through the enemy forces? And it's like, well, little ships don't have, hyperdrives. Usually. B, it's fucking expensive. And C, that was their huge capital ship that they had one of. And even that just put like a line through the dreadnought. It's not like the end-all be-all combat tactic. But either way, that was fucking cool. I thought the fight scene with all the red guards, the sort of I don't know what they're calling them. You know what I'm talking about. The red guards and Rey and Kylo Ren. That was a really good scene. I did like a lot of that combat. I like a lot of the characters. I like Rey. I like Finn. I know some people have problems with Finn. I think they're racist. I think these are racist, evil people. I don't know. I like Finn. So sue me. People had definite problems with Rose. I don't know. You put a cute Asian girl on screen. I don't know. It's like kryptonite. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm okay with it. She should be like the live action May or something. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. She can be in the whole movie. Whatever. What else did I really like? I liked a lot of the aesthetics, I guess, in the final scenes on the salt planet with the red and everything. Aesthetically, it was very beautiful. I did like some of the humor. They definitely went a little overboard with some of the stuff. I call it, it's basically a Star Wars movie as if created by Marvel in a lot of ways, but not, I mean, coming off of Thor Ragnarok, which hit so many good notes, I don't think this did as well, but I did like some of the humor in the movie. I really like the Porgs. I know that could be divisive. I like Porgs better than Ewoks, I'll tell you that much. I would own a Porg. Like, if they existed, I'd probably own a Porg. They would tear up all my shit, but I would own a Porg. moving on to what I didn't like. God. I really fucking don't like... It's not even I don't like Kylo Ren. Like, a lot of people like Kylo Ren. They think now he's really becoming a great character and all that. I fucking hate Adam Driver. I hate his face more than I've ever hated a man's face. And his voice combined with his face, and it's just... Your parents were nothing. They were just paupers in a pauper grave, and they were nothing, and you're nothing, and I'm nothing, and I'm Kylo Ren, and I'm angsty, and look at my face. Do you see my face? It's just, oh my god, I hate his face so much. I just... punchable face is not even a good enough word. It's like I want to rip his face off of his mouth and just put it into a void and just, oh my god. So any scene where he's talking and just has his mask off is just the worst. I just hate it. I just hate it so much. And it's a bummer, of course, but that is what it is. God. And when, you know, at the scene where he, like, destroys his mask, I'm like, no, put it back on! Put it back on! But he's like, no, I don't need a mask anymore. And it's just, oh, God, Adam Driver. It's very irrational, but I just hate it so much. I hate him. I hate the man. You know, they used the Force in a lot of interesting, unique, new ways. For better or for worse. Like I said, I feel like, you know, they're starting to become a little they're influenced, I guess, by all the Marvel movies and things like that, comic book movies. It feels like they wanted to make this a bit more comic booky, and so they really want to start using the Force to be a bit more superpower-ish in some ways. You know, they really want to start using the Force in new ways. And like Snoke creating sort of like a Force bridge between Rey and Kylo Ren. I guess it's fine. I don't know if I really get the whole, like, she got splashed with water and then he finds water on his hand or whatever. It's like, I don't know how that all works. That just seems sort of odd. Luke doing the whole Force projection thing is cool. It's very powerful. I mean, clearly, like it expended like everything he had to do it. I just didn't really buy that this version of Luke in this canon was powerful enough and knowledgeable enough to be able to do something that impressive that no one has ever done before. Within canon, I'm saying. Because this version of Luke is not the expanded universe version of Luke. This version of Luke, you know, I guess he did a couple things in sort of some books and comics or whatever in canon. Like he went to Jakku or something like that, and did some Force stuff against the Empire. But really, he you know, he Return of the Jedi, he was sort of, you know, powerful, but he couldn't beat Palpatine on his own. He just couldn't do it. Not really even at all. And then he does some other things, wrapping up the Empire. Then he starts training, you know, and some new students. That doesn't... I guess it's... I mean, maybe it's explained somewhere how long he does that. But from what I understand, not that long. Everything goes to shit. And then he exiles himself. And in the movie, he says he cuts himself off from the Force. And so in The Last Jedi, suddenly he's like, all right, I'll reconnect with the Force. I'll call him back. And then suddenly he can do this incredibly powerful Force projection, projecting his image and his voice perfectly to a location that he has never been to. And he can see and interact with everyone there. and they can see and interact with him, not physically, but sound and visually. And he gave her the earrings, or not the earring, whatever, the dice. What the fuck were they? Whatever. He gave her like a trinket. He gave Leia a trinket, and it didn't like fall through her hand. Like they were holding it, it just disappeared. So that means there had to be some physicality there. And I don't know. It just seems crazy powerful for this version of Luke. Expanded universe version of Luke, of course, he can fucking do anything. He's a god. But this version, I just didn't really buy it. But it was cool. Alright, I'm gonna rant for hours. I gotta kind of wrap this up. The whole side stuff, yeah, with Finn and Rose and Benicio del Toro. Yeah, like a lot of people say, it's completely pointless. Really, it's just character development, but really it's not even that great a character development. Really, the overall entire plot of the film is weak, I would say. Even, saying I like the movie, I think the overall plot entirely is a little weak. It just opens up a lot of plot questions and sort of potential nitpicks, and I mean, I don't know if I want to go so far as to say holes, but a lot of people are complaining about the plot of the rebels being just like a few feet out of range of the First Order's dreadnoughts and all their fleets and blah blah blah, and the First Order just can't do anything to stop these other than repeatedly shooting them and waiting for their fuel to run out. And the whole plot of Finn and Rose and them trying to do all this stuff that amounts to absolutely nothing. Nothing comes about from that. It's just filler content. It really is a filler episode of an anime. There's a lot of potential issues there. I mean, I still like the movie, but that was questionable. In a lot of ways, it was the Empire Strikes Back of the new trilogy, much like Force Awakens is the New Hope. And when Empire Strikes Back first came out, reception was not incredibly positive. It wasn't until Return of the Jedi came out that people were like, "Oh, Empire Strikes was really good." For me, Last Jedi makes me feel worse about Force Awakens, because now I feel like I'm cemented, in my opinion, that they've really kind of fucked up this new trilogy. And if what they want is sort of go more comic booky and to really start using the Force in new interesting ways and things like that, they really should have just fucking just thrown out. You're done. You're done with the whole old movies, the original trilogy, the prequels. You're done with that whole legacy. There's no talk of Skywalkers anymore. You're just done with that. You move, what I want now, what I would have wanted for The Force Awakens or whatever, for Episode 7, is you say, during the opening crawl, you say, Emperor Palpatine, died at the hands of Darth Vader 1,000 years ago, or whatever, something like that. Just do a 1,000-year time skip, and you say, since then, thousands and hundreds of thousands of Jedi and Sith have risen, and they've been at war for decades, or something like that. Just bring a whole new slate to the Star Wars live-action films. We're just really retreading same steps. And yeah, you have new characters, and you have new terms for things, and maybe you have some new force powers and some new abilities, but you're retreading the same freaking steps of, the rebels and the Empire, and here's the Millennium Falcon, and there's Chewbacca, and here's a person who grew up on a desert planet, and she has questions about her parents, and blah, blah, blah. It's just wipe the slate clean. And maybe they think that not many people want that. They think that people want what's familiar with them, that what is Star Wars, what is the Skywalker legacy, and Rebels versus the Empire, and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I'd rather have an Old Republic movie, but I'd also rather have just, like I said, future movie with with entirely different stakes, entirely different situations, where they don't have to worry at all about, well, what happens with Luke Skywalker? What happens with Leia? What happens with Han? What happens with, you know, the Rebel Alliance? And what happens after the Empire falls? And like, no, just, that's all hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Don't worry about it. That's just my opinion. And you know, with that way, 1,000 years in the future, whatever, they could be like, okay, in that time frame, you know, all these Jedi have come along, and, you know, the Jedi are completely different now, and they've been experimenting with all sorts of force powers, and they could do all sorts of crazy shit, where now, if they want to do crazy shit, it's just like, where the fuck did this come from? This is completely out of left field. With such a short time frame between this and episode 6, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that brings me to the worst part of the entire film, and in my opinion, the worst thing that I have ever seen in a live-action Star Wars film, and I hope you know what I'm talking about. And that is Leia. If you haven't seen the film, and you don't mind spoilers, which that's why I guess you're still listening, at one point, somewhat early on in the film, Leia is in, like, the bridge of the capital ship, and 2 missiles come in, or whatever, from space, and blow out the entire bridge of the ship. Like, gigantic explosion, Admiral Akbar dies instantly, and Leia gets caught in the explosion, she gets blown out into outer space. And it happens very suddenly, and I'm like, wow, that's how they're killing Leia. Like, that's very sort of, unsanctimonious, or, you know, it's very irreverent or whatever, but okay, fine. It's very quick, I suppose. And shortly afterwards, they have a lingering shot on Leia's face as she's sort of frozen, floating in outer space, and I'm like, this seems even more weird. Like, why are they focusing so, like, this seems disrespectful almost. And then you see her finger start to twitch, and I'm like, fuck. And then her eyes open. And I'm like, what the fuck? And she starts to float back towards the ship. And I'm like, okay, all right. This is some sort of, like, dream, or some, maybe they're like, maybe that's what it is, like a vision. Maybe she's having, like, a force vision of how she might die. And it's going to cut back, like, Final Destination, and she'll be back on the bridge before the explosion, and she'll be able to prevent something using, you know, these newfound passive sort of force visions, or something, you know, like that. Fuck that. Because it cuts to multiple characters from the ship looking out a window and being like, oh, what is that? As they watch Leia float through space in her, like, robe, in her dress or whatever, back onto the ship, alive and well. Now, she goes into a coma afterwards, but it's like a real short coma. She comes back, and she's perfectly fine. There's no problems with her. She's just back to being Leia. And as soon as I saw it, I just turned to my friend. I'm like, well, that's going to be controversial. But honestly, like, that is by far the worst thing I've ever seen. Not only is it just retarded, not only is the idea that Leia suddenly develops incredibly powerful force abilities, where not only do you, like, she was unconscious. The explosion knocked her out. So this was a completely unconscious force ability that allows her to survive in the vacuum of space and have enough cognitive thought to pull herself using the force to get back onto the bridge and back onto the ship. Like, well, Palpatine would have loved the ability to just fly through outer space at his whim, but here's Leia, and here's how she can do it. Not only is that just retarded, in my opinion, that Leia can suddenly do this and be fine with no problems. The way that it was shot and filmed is even more retarded. It looks terrible. Like, she is literally, like, in the motion of just, like, frozen in some sort of dance motion as she just flies through space and just floats back towards the ship. It looks so god-awful, and it's just... God, it's so terrible. I hate it. I hate it. That was really bad. Just the worst decision. And if they wanted to show Leia had powerful Force abilities, which we already kind of knew she was connected to the Force. I don't know why we really needed to show she had powerful Force abilities, but I guess they were assuming she would be in the next movie as well and maybe, you know, demonstrate them even further. Fine. But if they wanted to show she had powerful Force ability, why did it have to be this way? Why couldn't it be Force visions? Or why couldn't it be that she could telepathically, you know, communicate with plenty of people through the Force? Why couldn't she do something like Snoke, where she could bridge, you know, two people together and allow them to communicate through the Force? Or, you know, any sort of other sort of passive, non-fucked up ability of using the Force that, you know, somehow she could manage. I don't know. Come up with something. Come up with something other than what they did. It was really the worst. Other than her grabbing a lightsaber and, like, crushing an AT-AT or something with the Force, it was really just terrible. And even, you know, doing that, it would be like, whoa, Carrie Fisher doing badass shit. This did not look or seem badass to me. It just seemed fucked. And the other thing is, from what I understand, they did not alter any of her scenes, Carrie Fisher's scenes, because of her death. Which I understand. There's a degree of respectability because of that. I get it. But I think the movie would have been better overall had they done that. I think the next movie would have been better overall had they done that. Sort of. Basically, you know, the awesome anime scene where the light speed jump through the other ships is done by Vice Admiral Holdo or whatever, as she does like this sacrificial move to save the rebels. That role, you know, the sacrificial part would have been far better in Carrie Fisher's hands, in Leia's hands, as being, you know, as being the sacrificial lamb or whatever, and allowing the younger Vice Admiral Holdo to sort of continue on and carry on the torch. It would have been made far more sense and been far better. You know, whether or not Carrie Fisher died, either even, you know, before she died, it would have just been the better move for the series, I think. It would have been like, you know, Leia's really stepping up, and you know, this is like a really noble death, you know, for Leia. Now, the start of the next movie, they're just gonna have like a line, or maybe they'll show her funeral and be like, oh yeah, you know, Leia served the rebels, the rebellion, the republic, whatever. She served it proudly and blah blah blah. This would have been far more noble and far better, and allowed, you know, Vice Admiral Holdo or whatever to continue on and become, you know, the new regular character. There's just, you know, there's a lot of just little missteps, I think, with the writing. And I know, you know, the director and the writer, they had to sort of pick up the pieces from Force Awakens, which had a lot of strands floating around, and I get it. No matter what, it's not an easy job. And I think they could have solved all this by just starting a new slate with Episode 7. That's what I think. I wish they would have done it. And so now my only hope is that Episode 9 sort of wraps all these strands up in an interesting enough way that doesn't piss me off. And then Episode 10, we start a new slate. That's really what I'm hoping for. I want to see fucking Sith Jedi wars. That's what I really want. I desperately want to see that on screen. I want to see just some wars. I want to get away from the Empire versus Rebels. We've had enough of it. We've really had enough of it. Alright, I guess that's it. I talked way too long, but I knew I would. You know, despite all the rants, like I said, I did enjoy it. I did sitting there just watching through the movie. For the most part, I enjoyed it. You give me a scene in a Star Wars movie of the Millennium Falcon taking down TIE fighters while the Star Wars theme plays in the background, I'm going to be a happy guy. And I got that, so alright, it's alright. Alright, anyways. Check out the Cthulhu Mythos and Bloodborne video tomorrow. Please, just give it a view. You know, watch the ads or something. Just let the ads play. Give me that, at least. I put a lot of work into it. Give me that, at least. But, couple more Elder Scrolls videos this week. Some more Final Fantasy coming. And, yeah, I guess that's it. So my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. And happy holidays to all of you fine folks.